We've just seen the latest round of World Cup qualifying from the European teams, and we've seen how England are looking on the road to Qatar 2022. What do you think Gareth Southgate needs to fix ahead of that World Cup with everything you've seen so far, Mark?
Well, England got to the final of the Euros, and I think they did very well. They've got a great squad of talented players, coming through. You know, people like Jude Bellingham, Mason Greenwood. I think the situation with England is quite bright, but I was at the game against Hungary on Tuesday night, and it was very flat. It was very kind of unimpressive. I think the biggest problem that Southgate has got, it's not about quality and even tactics so much. It's about keeping the players interested and motivated. I think the players are bored. I think when they play for England, they know they're playing against teams like Hungary, like Poland, who they're not going to beat them. They're not going to give them a real tough game. And I think the players drop their standards. And I think you talk about players that play in the Champions League all the time. They get motivated. You know, some of the City and Liverpool players played that fantastic Premier League game, 10 days ago. They join England and the standard just plummets. And I think big name players need to be motivated and excited by what they're facing. I don't think England players right now are excited because they look at what they're playing against and it's, Poland, Hungary, Albania. It's not very enticing as a top level player. Beyond that, I do think that, if England are going to qualify, certainly challenge for the World Cup, they have to become a bit more adventurous against the big teams. But we're not going to know that till we get to Qatar because they're not playing the big teams. They're playing teams that they'll beat quite easily if they have to.
And saying that, they finally did play the team that everybody was asking for. And it's not like they set the picture light, really. For some, it was disappointing. What would you say for those? Do you think that it is to do with the opposition?
I think it can be. Like I said, I just think that it is hard if you're a top player to motivate yourself to perform against a team that's 2 or 3 levels below you. I think it's natural that you'll kind of drop your level a little bit. The intensity drops. And yes, England weren't particularly great against Hungary, but I don't think there's anything major to worry about. I think there's a tendency to be a bit overreactive with England at times. And I think that, yes, it was a poor result, a poor performance, but I think if that was England versus Germany last night or Spain or Italy, you'd see a different performance from the England team because the players would have been motivated to perform against better players. I just think it's hard at times to sustain yourself and motivate yourself against players that just aren't as good as you. They're nowhere near as good as you.
Now, obviously, you've got Rashford and Jude Bellingham aside, but do you think there are any players that were not in this squad that are going to be World Cup 2022 contenders, maybe some that could even come through by that time?
Yeah, like I said, you're right in terms of mentioning people like Greenwood and Rashford is another one that you'd think would be there. Bellingham. I do, Harvey Elliott for me had a really good start to the season with Liverpool. He's obviously suffered that really bad injury, but you'd hope that by the end of this season, Harvey Elliott is back to fitness and again has a chance to break through. Because I thought he was really impressive for Liverpool. He could give England something different at the World Cup next year. But we're talking about a year away, and I think that is another challenge that Gareth Southgate faces because ordinarily when you qualify for a World Cup, the finals are 6 months later. So you've got a squad of players that are pretty much going to stay the same with maybe 1 or 2 additions. You've got a full year, 13 months maybe to the next World Cup. And it's going to be so hard to say to players that are in this squad now, keep yourself ticking over, keep motivated because it's a long, long time. So how does Southgate motivate himself for that full year of, I know the Nations League comes around, but everyone's just waiting for the World Cup. And it's going to be this kind of big prize on the horizon. It's a long way away. So yes, there's going to be a lot of players that could break through in the time between now and then. And it's going to be difficult to keep the players that are in there motivated and informed. And I do think that certainly Mason Greenwood at Man United is the one for me that in a year's time, he'll be 21, he'll be flying, he'll be, for me, a regular in the England team. And I think Bellingham as well. I think Bellingham could phase out one of Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips. He's a much more adventurous player. I think he does everything that they do, but better. And he's more attacking as well. And Rashford, Rashford's a tricky one. He's got a big time ahead at Man United. How does he break into the United forward line with Ronaldo there, with Greenwood, with Cavani? What happens with England? Does he kind of replace Harry Kane? Does he provide Harry Kane's backup? Does he play out wide? So, Rashford, for me, is a proven international player, but he's kind of fallen off the radar a bit because of his lack of fitness in the last 12 months. So he's got a big year ahead. I do think he'll make the squad for Qatar, but he's got a big year ahead of him, Marcus Rashford.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.